Hey guys, this is Kevin again, and this is a live video. And I haven't posted a video in a while because I've been really busy. So, what I'm trying to do right now is to just go ahead and share some lessons because I don't have a lot of time recently to write. And yeah, I know because for live videos, if you're using FB free data, you might not be able to get this. But if I write it down, you'll be able to see like what I've written at least with free Facebook data. A lot of you have told me that you can't access the blog because you're just using free FB data, but um, it kind of offends me that because you're trying to study and you're like trying to just like not make an effort to learn. And I don't know, like it turns me off when people send me that message. But um, I'm making an effort to like share lessons to you, but apparently for some people they don't really care. But like some people are different, so I'm not really trying to talk to like everyone. I'm only talking to people who are committed. And the people who are committed, they usually like, hey, go to this website. They go to the website. I send them a link to a good article, sometimes on my blog, sometimes from somewhere else. I tell them to watch this specific YouTube video, and then they just go read it. I tell them that, hey, I'm selling a book. They go buy it. Hey, there's this really great book. You should buy it. And they go out and buy it, and they get hired. They improve, they excel, and they get what they want in life. And that, like maybe out of 100 people, or maybe out of 200 people, there's only maybe one, sometimes two of those people. So I'm just looking. There's currently close to 5,000 people who have access to this Facebook page. So I'm not trying to talk to all 5,000 of you. I'm just talking to maybe two or three people who would want to improve their lives, because I know that not everyone is going to be willing to do what it takes to succeed. Now, I prepared a small, not sure if you see this, but I've prepared um, a short list of lessons on how to make sure that you're unforgettable during your interviews. And the reason why I use the word unforgettable is because a lot of people, they choose to become like forgettable in their interviews. Like the interviewer in a call center scenario is usually processing hundreds of people on a daily basis. And when they say process, that means they interview people. So they talk to people, they ask them about themselves, and they've usually heard the same stories over and over again. They've usually heard the same interview answers over and over again. They've usually listened to the same lack of confidence over and over again. And it makes their life boring. And what you want to do is you want to start a relationship with your new interviewer, and I mean with your interviewer, and you want them to like you, so they would be on your side when it comes to recommending which applicants are going to the next stage of the process. So the first thing that you want to do is you need to make your interviewer like you. You need to make them smile. You need to make them laugh. You need to make them absolutely love you. And the thing with that is you need to make sure that like every aspect of building a new relationship has been covered. And it's a lot of people have the wrong idea with um, they have the wrong idea with call center interviews, or any interview in particular. Because a lot of people, they come in and they believe that an interview is like trying to win the Miss Universe. So you need to have all these beautiful interview answers and just like answer these questions. Some people, they believe that an interview is it's like trying to win a game show contest where you have to answer you need to have the right answer to these interview questions. But here's the thing. When you try to answer like a Miss Universe contestant or as a game show contestant, you're in search of the right answer. So what ends up happening is you Google the answer to the question. What ends up happening is that you, along with all the other people who Google the answer to the question, what happens there is that you go to the interviewer with the same answer. So if we go back to the metaphor where you're approaching this like you're a Miss Universe contestant, imagine a Miss Universe where Miss Philippines and Miss from everywhere else over the world, they give the same answer to the same question. Imagine how that gonna look. It's not just, oh no, you're not like beauty and brains, you're just no brains. So that's pretty bad. So, and that's the reason why I advise against Googling answers to interview questions. Because if you're gonna copy the answer point by point, and then there's nothing really good that's going to come out of it. You see? So, and that's where I come in. That's why I recommend having your own unique answers. And having your own unique answers will make the interviewer remember you, will make the interviewer like you because you're more genuine, and it'll also make the interviewer appreciate that you're honest, and also realize that you're a good storyteller. And a good storyteller is it's one of the traits that they like to have for call center agents or even future call center team leaders and managers. So good communication skills are the key. Now, the problem is we all I get asked, like, how do I improve my English all the time? And the question that you should be asking yourself is, what do I use my English for? So, yeah, a lot of you grew up in the Philippines, I imagine. So, you talk to other people in Tagalog or whatever your local dialect is. But if you speak with other people in Tagalog almost all the time. And so even if you've had at least 10 years of experience in practicing English for at least 1 hour a day, ever since you were a kid, you forget about that because that's not what you do in practice. Now, we're at the point where you have to practice your English again. And what do you do next? So what you do is you ask yourself, how do I use my English? So in a lot of situations, I introduce myself to other people in English, especially if it's a potential boss, or if you're in sales, it's usually a potential client. And most people who have the ability to improve your life, if you're in the Philippine setting, is that these people are usually speaking in English, and that's one good reason why you need to be great at speaking in English. And yeah, and a lot of people are going to insist, well, I'm Filipino, they should be talking in Tagalog, or we should be speaking the national language, but nobody cares. People who have the ability to improve your life usually speak in English. And if you can speak in English to them, they're going to want to talk to you too, because like they speak in English and you speak in English, and it's all good. So that's one important thing. Now, so the first one is you introduce yourself. The second one is you ask questions. So you need to be able to ask people questions. I'm going to cover that in this video. The third one is you should be able to tell stories. Stories are how we get our points across. Stories are what we tell other people to prove to them that we are what we say we are. Because nobody's gonna show some evidence of why they're a good person. There's no in my past job, I'm a really good worker. Here's like the CCTV recording of me in the office doing my job. No one's gonna do that. Or I'm a good kid. Our house has a CCTV, so here is me being a good kid to my parents. That's not how it goes. We tell people stories, and if you forgot how to tell stories, we're gonna talk about that. And then finally, just give instructions. And instructions are basic. They're easy to remember. If you were to ask me for advice on how to give instructions, I would recommend that you go to YouTube, you watch how-to instructions, you watch instructions given in a cooking show, instructions from like how to do things, how to repair things. YouTube has a lot of all these interesting how-to videos, so go ahead and do that. And those are all the instructions that you need. Just make sure it's step by step. Make sure you use simple words to convey what you're trying to convey, and that's all that. So now, if we're to summarize, so the first is introducing yourself, the second is asking questions, the third is telling stories, and the fourth is giving instructions. Now, so we're gonna delve a little more into stories because I've talked about introductions a lot in the past videos and in the past blog posts, so I have a feeling that part has been done to death, and we're gonna cover that a little, introductions, but I'm gonna delve more into the stories with this video. So question is like, what kind of stories are people interested in? So I'm not really prepared. I'm just like doing this live. The only preparation I have is this piece of paper and this piece of paper. So I'm just making this up as I go along. Let me just look at this. As for stories, people are just, you might have heard this before, that like everyone is fighting a difficult battle, or everyone is going through challenges in their lives. And that's true. And in a lot of situations, we are looking for encouragement. That's the reason why I built this blog. I'm trying to encourage people who have gone through the trouble that I've gone through. Because when I started, my job hunting story started when my dad kicked me out of the house. And I had to look for work. And well, before that, I was told that my college is not going to get paid for, my family is to stop receiving allowance, and all these terrible words that will bring your confidence down. And then before that, he told me that even security guards need to have at least 3 years in college or something like that. And then my mom tells me that I should work in McDonald's or something like that because they accept like high school grads or something. But I didn't want to do that too. So what I did instead is like I heard about this call center thing, and that people who are like working students from LaSalle and good schools, they go there so they could like cover some expenses in their studies. So yeah, try it out. Like that's that's what smart people are doing, maybe that's what I should be doing too. And that's how I've made a lot of my decisions. Like, if I feel that smart people are doing something in a certain way, I should give it a shot because they're smart people. I'm not really smart. I think I'm a little smart, but like, I know that there are a lot of people who are smarter than me, and I look to them for advice. So I just copy them, and I just see what works out for me, and just from there, I just make my own decisions afterwards. But if something looks like a good idea and smart people are doing it, I'm gonna give that a try. So, um, as for and then, yeah, I started looking for work in a call center, and then there's a lot of failure. My first interviewer, I got to the job offer, but then when I told them that I'm gonna work while studying, they pulled the job offer back, and yeah, I think I told that story in the previous video. Anyway, so people are looking for stories that will encourage them to move forward. Like, someone experienced a problem and then they figured out a solution and then they achieved some form of success or satisfaction in what they did. So we're all looking for that, and that's what usually happens when I talk to people. I ask them about like what they're doing with their life, what challenges they're experiencing, and I'd like to hear the stories of like how they're supposed to be bad at something, and then they're now good at something. So when I meet or when I get to talk to an expert, I ask the first thing I ask them is like, "Hey man, you're really you you came across as really confident. Were you always like that ever since you were a kid, or were you ever shy at one point?" And that's one of the reasons why I named my book "A Shy Person's Guide on How to Get Hired in a Call Center," because I started out as like really shy, and I trained myself how to become a little more confident, just confident enough to get hired in a call center. And as you can see from this video, I'm not like as confident as I want to be. Like, there's more confidence to be learned on my end, because like, I still get nervous. I still panic a little when I try to say certain things. So there's that, and I'm training myself to get better by doing these live feeds. So in a way, I'm helping you practice with this video, and I'm also practicing myself. So people are interested in people who have confidence and people who know what they're doing with their lives. Now, people who have confidence, they have this goal, they have a direction where they want their life to go, and they're already working on how to get there. Sorry, the camera is shaking because I'm getting notifications and I don't get to see live. Anyway, so wait. So what do you want to do? Why do you want to work in a call center? Oh, sorry, before I forget, if you have a notebook, just go ahead and grab it, and I'm gonna write some questions down for you to think about, and just I'm gonna wait, give you like 30 seconds, and the idea here is that you're going to just think about certain things in detail. Asking yourself questions will lead you to finding the right answer. A lot of people, they don't ask. They feel that something is impossible, so they stop. They give up. And instead of giving up, I highly recommend that you ask yourself, how do I do it? So I read this book more than 10 years ago. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the story is about a Japanese dude, Robert Kiyosaki. He grew up with his dad, who eventually became poor, and his best friend, who's really rich, and they liked him, so he kind of became like rich dad. So on his book, he wrote down, poor people say, I can't afford it. And then rich people, or rich dad says, you always ask yourself the question, how can I afford it? And that's the idea. Like, if I can't do it, like, you should be asking yourself, how can I do it? How had other people done this? Are there instructions that I can read? Are there experts that I can talk to? Are there videos that I can watch? Are there books that I can buy? Are there courses that I can pay for? And that's the thing. Like, I don't know how to do these things. Like, I don't know how to start a blog. Like, at first, I don't know how to get hired in a call center. And then, I don't know how to sell. And then, I don't know how to make customers happy because I got hired in a call center. And then, I don't know how to improve a business. I don't know how to talk to get clients for the company I work for. And then it's like problem after problem after problem. And then I'm like going to get fired because I'm bad at the call center job that I got hired in. And then like I don't know how to start a blog, and all these I don't knows, all these problems are leading me toward the answer that I'm looking for. And simply by asking myself how to improve my situation, or how to ask questions, or what questions should I be asking if I'm trying to get this done, like how do I start a blog, how do I start a video. So if you ask yourself the questions, you're going to end up finding the answers. So instead of being interested in knowing the answers, you need to be interested in finding out the questions. Now, let me just check here because I feel like I'm going off track. So, the other question that you should be asking yourself is, are you thinking about who you are? Like, what is your life story? What's your, what are the interesting stories in your life? Like, how did you pick the course that you took up? Or do you believe in a certain thing? And how did you end up believing that? And where are you going? And what are you doing to get there? So that's a really important thing. So for a lot of you following this call center training tips Facebook page or reading my blog, a lot of you are interested in getting hired in a call center, and a lot of you are interested in becoming more confident, or learning how to improve your English. And so you know what you're trying to do. The next question is like, what can you do to get there? And people are interested in that. So when you make a new friend, or you get to talk to the interviewer, you can tell them like, what do you want to do with your life, and what are you doing to improve that? And simply by asking yourself these questions, you're going to come up with better answers. Like, I'm reading Kevin Olega's blog, or I'm reading I don't know, a lot of other blogs on how to improve my confidence. So now that you know that, we're going to proceed to the activity that I mentioned at the beginning. So if you don't have a pen and paper yet, just go ahead and get it. I'm going to ask you to write down your story. And your story is the most important thing that you're going to share with the interviewer. And I learned this. I think this is like the 4th or 5th time I applied. I went to this company called... Oh man, I forgot. So we went to this company, who's now known as KGB, I think. I think it's at Info NXX. We went to RCBC Plaza. I went to this interview, and I met this girl who's really good in English, and she became my friend. And then there's this other girl who had bad English, like accent and some pronunciation errors. And she got hired, and we didn't get hired. And the reason is she's good at, even if her English is bad, she's really good at telling stories. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to learn how to become a good storyteller. So as for the stories, I want you to write down like your name, like is there a story behind your name? What are the cool things about your name? Have you ever, like, who are the, what's the word? Who are the celebrities who have the same name as you, and what's their story? And, like, what do you have in common with other people, like successful people or people you admire? Like, yeah, in my case, I watch a lot of anime, so there's Naruto, and we have the same birthday, and oh shit, sorry, battery's low. Let me just plug in the charger. So yeah, write down your story and what do you have in common with people you admire. The second is about your work. Like, what's your work? What are the stories behind your work? Like, is there a situation where you were awesome at work? Is there a situation where you were bad at work? And what did you learn? How did you improve? What's the story behind that? Like, one time I had this, there are two main stories about my past job in a call center. So the first one is I was about to get fired because my stats are really bad. My then team lead had told me that, hey, after your shift, you go to my station. I want to show you something. I walk over to his station, and then he suddenly shows me this email. And on the subject line, the email said, recommended for termination. And then I saw the people in my batch. So I think he's going to warn me. Like, some people in my batch, they're about to get fired. Don't stick with them. They might try to get you fired with them or something like that. And then at the end, I saw my name, recommended for termination because of low stats. And afterwards, he told me that, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep going, or do you want to quit? And then I said, like, I want to keep going. Is there anything that you can teach me so I can improve, it says low stats. If it says low stats, it means I can improve my stats. So if I improve my stats, I'm not going to get fired. So, like, is there anything you can teach me to increase my stats? And he gave me a lot of tips, and I listened to all those tips, and I followed it to the letter. And at the end of the few months that I was working with that team lead, I became top agent for the first time. I haven't been top for a while, since I was like 19 years old, and I was like 27 at the time that I got hired in that call center job. And then there's this other time where I was having like a really terrible. I had this really terrible experience, and my attendance is going down in the call center, and I was assigned to this new TL who terminates everyone who has bad attendance. They call her the Terminator, but she's like the prettiest TL at that time. So I like, even if like everyone hated her, I thought she was cute, and I'm like, oh, fine, I'll listen to what she has to say. And I just like asked her, like, what are your do you have any tips? Like she's always angry, so I'm like trying to figure, like, she gave me some tips, but like I'm so I found her so cute that I keep forgetting about the tips. And besides, if you work in a call center, you're usually suffering from a lack of sleep. So remembering things gets really hard. And that's the reason why I write things down, so I don't forget them. So what ended up happening is I kept asking myself, how do I make sure that I'm never late? And every time I failed, every time I came in late, I was writing down the reason. And every time I wrote down the reason, what can I do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? So, like, if I need to make sure I leave the house by 12:30. If I don't leave the house by 12:30, it's over. Sometimes I don't leave the house at 12:30, but what do you call that? If I leave the house at 12:45 or something like that, when I get to the bus stop, I need to take a taxi, because if I wait for a jeep to leave, I'm not gonna make it. So that's the rule. I leave the house at 12:30, everything is well. So I arrive on time. I have maybe like 5 minutes to spare, and I log in, and everything's perfect. I leave before 4:45. I get off the bus. I need to take a taxi. Now, if I leave after 12:45, then I need to take a taxi all the way and pay like 300 pesos to make sure, 300 pesos plus toll, to make sure that I arrive on time. So that's how it goes. Now, the third question is like, do you have brothers? Do you have sisters? Are they doing something really cool? Sometimes you don't have stories on your own, but you have like these siblings as your role models. So, in my case, I have some half brothers and half sisters. My older half brother is a business genius. He worked in a call center. After a few years, he started up his own business, did pretty well, and then eventually he migrated to the States. Older half sister, she became a manager of a band. She became a writer. She became really successful at what he did. I looked up to her a lot, and in one of my old posts in Minimal Changes, my personal blog, I talked about like how she told me to write down everything that I'm good at and just select from there. And this was from a time where I didn't know what to do with my life and what to do for college. So anyway, so yeah, you're having brothers and sisters. If you have those, you can tell stories about them. So one way I've used that in an interview situation is I saw this Ateneo, what do you call that? Like something from Ateneo in the HR or in the boss's desk, and I asked the boss if she was from Ateneo, and I told her like, hey, my half sister's from Ateneo. She's like, from this batch. Which batch are you? And like we talked a lot about that, and she ended up liking me enough to give me the position. So those are pretty useful. She also ended up like telling me stories about how when she lived in Katipunan, and our family also lived in Katipunan near where Ateneo is. So we ended up talking about a lot of things. And when you're talking to the interviewer, your goal is to just your goal is to find things that you have in common, so you can talk about them. And at the same time, you need to talk about them in English. So that's all you need to think about. You don't need to memorize an entire dictionary. You don't need to reread your old English books. You just need to know your story and make sure that you're telling the story right. Fix the grammar. You write the story down, and or if you're like me, you're a little lazy at writing, you just record yourself and like, hey, that sentence didn't sound right. What's the right sentence for that? So there's that. And so I'm gonna go through all the other questions like really quick because this video is taking way too long. So the fourth one is, what do you do for fun? So you need to write that down. Like, and you can write some interesting stories. Like in my case, I go to CrossFit. I didn't lose weight when I took CrossFit, but I lost like 3 inches from my waist. I also built up a lot of muscle in my legs, and like it's pretty useful for doing things. I don't feel as tired. In fact, I was able to take the bike from Sukat to Subic in a couple of days. So that was fun. So yeah, what do you do for fun? What are you passionate about? Like, what are you interested in? What are you learning? And then, are you close to your family? What's your family like? Like, sometimes they ask that during interviews, so you need to be prepared with that question. Who are your friends? Do you have friends who are doing interesting things? Are you learning interesting things from your friends? So those are stories that you can talk about. Where did you grow up? Like, where are you from? What's interesting in that place? In my case, I grew up in Parañaque. I also grew up in Quezon City. So I've been to all these nice places. I've met some friends there who taught me a lot of cool things. So, what else? What are your special skills? What are your what are you good at? What are your superpowers? So you need to ask yourself these questions, and like what I said, you could write it down. You could maybe pause this video, write down the questions, and then after you're done writing all the questions, you can just ask yourself, what are your answers to these questions? Are there better answers to these questions? What can I share with interviewers? What can I share with new friends? What can I share with people I've just met? And when you ask these questions, you're going to end up figuring out what to do next. And there's that. Like, if you want to learn how to improve your English, instead of like reading some books, or just go with like your introduction, your personal stories, and people are going to think that you're really good at English. Like, sometimes I still make grammar mistakes. Sometimes I make pronunciation mistakes. But the thing is, the reason why I sound really good in English is because I've talked about this. I've talked about my life story so many times. And like, sometimes I'm telling a new friend about my life story, and then like, hey, what I said didn't sound right. Maybe I should fix that next time I tell my story. So there's that. Like, if you're afraid of going to interviews, just meet new friends and just practice telling them your life story, and that's a good way to get started. Preferably, you want to talk to people who also speak in English, so you can tell them your life story. So back then, when I was single, I was trying to go out on dates with people who only spoke English. So they have high standards, so I can also practice my English. Not really because I want to practice my English. My English is already pretty good by then. But I kind of feel like I enjoy talking to people who also spoke in English, like girls who also speak in English. Because if they speak in English, I feel like all my effort to improve my English isn't wasted. Because like, if it's Tagalog, it's just like the normal thing. But if you can speak to someone who speaks in English pretty well, it sounds fun. It's like you're a character from the movies or the TV show that you enjoy watching, because you get to play the role of someone who speaks in English. So that's just what I have to say about that. You can go out with whoever you want. Anyway, so yeah, I'm just gonna do a quick recap for this video. So it's really important, if you want to make sure that you're unforgettable in your interview, Make sure that you tell stories. Make sure that you speak in English well. Make sure that you introduce yourself well. Make sure that you ask them questions too. Like if I'm gonna tell you something private about myself, I want to learn something private about you. And maybe I shouldn't have said private because kind of a double meaning there. Anyway, yeah, so stories, introductions, stories, introductions and stories and questions and instructions is these are the four things that you need to keep remembering when you're trying to improve your English. And instead of having a mindset where that you're joining a Miss Universe pageant or you're joining a game show, think of your interview as just meeting a new friend, like making friends with someone new. And that's all you have, and you just go to as many of these interviews as you can possibly go to, and after maybe 16 interviews you're gonna find the job that you're looking for. So again, if you have any questions, just leave your questions in the comments below, and if you've watched this video until the end, please support my blog by buying my books and sharing this with people who you feel will benefit from reading my blog or watching my videos. And please hit like, or I prefer that you send me a heart. So if we were like Facebook buddies, I send hearts to people instead of likes, because likes are like that for me. Like it's you're messaging someone and he gave you know that joke, like you sent someone a heartfelt message or something that you talked about, you typed it, and like it's a long message, and then they give you like a K, they answer with a K, and now that Facebook allows you, they answer with like a that, like that. It feels like a that when you send me something like that, so I don't like it when someone sends me a thumbs up. So make sure that you just keep watching, just keep asking questions, and I'll do my best to answer when I log in again. I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.